Well, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to Slimy Green Garage. Today, what you see before you is a 2016 Takeuchi TL12 V2. Now, if you were here at the beginning of our channel, some of the videos that have done really well was on a Bobcat 871 series that we had to pull the engine out because the thing had caught fire, and it was a total disaster. But when we bought this property, we came across this unit. I knew it didn't run properly. In fact, when it showed up on the property, it would barely creep along at, we're going to call it half a mile an hour. But essentially, what I ended up doing was making some contacts with some people. The first thing I ended up doing was buying a laptop, which was a Toughbook. By the way, a good friend of mine who recommended this to me down in Texas, his name is Aaron Barnes. And if you got a unit like this and you want to do your own diagnosis and not pay up the yin yang to take it to a shop, well, he's a great contact. Look him up on Facebook. He's out there, Aaron Barnes. But anyway, he recommended I buy this Toughbook. As you can see, Toughbook. And so I bought that off eBay secondhand. And then he also recommended I purchase this Denso adapter. So this Denso adapter connects to the laptop with all these cables. They end up hooking up to the Takeuchi machine. So initially, my machine was in full D-rate mode. So basically that's why it would only creep it. Like I said, I told you a half mile per hour, maybe 1 mile per hour. It would barely even run. So when I got the software in the computer and I got that hooked up, I was able to take it back out of full D-rate mode. This machine had supposedly been def deleted, okay? And so I'm still not 100% on that, but what that software, well, what it allowed me to do was to reset the def on the computer. So we took it out of full D-rate mode, and we've used this skid steer, I'm gonna say maybe 20 hours total on this property. And it's done a lot of work in that amount of time. But one thing with this machine that we did notice is that if you're traveling with the machine, trying to raise the bucket, lower the bucket, dig into something, it definitely bogs down. It is weak. And I know it's not running 100%. And so what I did the other day with the software in the computer that I have is I actually hooked it up this machine, and it's a 4-cylinder Kubota engine. It's about 100 horsepower is what it's supposed to be. Definitely not running at that right now, but I was able to hook up to the machine. So one at a time with fuel injectors, I was able to cut them out. So I could see if the fuel injectors were doing their job or if there's a problem with the cylinders. Again, it's a 4-cylinder machine, starting from 1 from the back, 2, 3, 4 coming towards the front. And so I already did that test once, but for your viewing pleasure, if you've got a machine like this, or you got a machine that's like the Kubota 95, what is it, 95 VL2? I don't even know what that is, but the Takeuchi TL12 V2 machine has a Kubota engine, and well, this one's got issues. We've already replaced the tracks on this machine. This was not a cheap machine to buy in the first place. We paid a good chunk of money to have somebody else do the work to replace those tracks. It was not cheap. The machine was not cheap. We got to get this thing running at 100%. So if you're in a similar situation and you're thinking about a Takeuchi TL12 V2 machine, why don't you just watch along? I'm going to go ahead and hook the computer back up. I'm going to show you what we do when we're cutting out individual cylinders. We're going to be able to see which cylinders make a difference in the operation of the machine, and then we're going to diagnose from there. So at this point, I'm going to rig up the computer. I'll try to take you inside the cab, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody. Well, we've climbed into the cab, and we got all these cables, and essentially, I told you about this connector. down below where I showed you that adapter, I'm going to plug that in. This is much easier for you than it is for me right now. So I appreciate you. If you haven't already, like and subscribe the page, because this stuff doesn't come easy. You're going to open up the laptop. We're going to power it on. Okay, so it's powering up as we speak. I don't know if you can see. User, welcome. Okay. All right, so when you get into this system, we're using the Digimaster launcher. So we're going to open that up. And then we're going to be patient. It's a computer. It says a connection error, so you know what that means. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go ahead and turn the key on to the run position. We're going to click the check mark. And so we got to put a user ID in and password. Okay, I just logged in. I went ahead and put my user ID and password in. And now we are going to go down to menu. If you can see that. And we are going to go to, let's go to Start Diagnosis, New Diagnosis. Click the check mark. The target, under target, we're going to do ECU baud rate. And then we're going to go down to Takeuchi and click the check mark. So it's now connecting to the machine. And it already knows Takeuchi engine, the Kubota V3800. And then you can see the TL12 V-2 or the TL12 R-2. So we're just going to click the check mark box. And it's now detecting. Okay, so we are in. So now we want to go over to the left side where it says active test. And right up top here, we've got cylinder, number 1 cylinder injection stop, number 2 cylinder injection stop, all the way through number 4. So what we're going to go ahead and do is start the machine. Hopefully it will start easy enough for us. Okay, now I know it's noisy. We're going to go ahead and double click on the number 1 cylinder injection stop. We're going to hit this play button right here. Click the check mark over here. Now, when we hit this little lightning bolt, it should cut off the number 1 cylinder. And so we're going to do that. So I just clicked it. And if you can hear it, it did not make any difference to the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button. I'm going to go over here and hit the back button. And we're going to go to number 2 cylinder injection stop. And we're going to hit the play button. Hit the check mark. We're going to hit the little lightning bolt. Okay, you had to hear that. Number 2 cylinder made a drastic difference in how this machine was running. So let's go, let's hit the back button and let's go to the number 3 cylinder injection stop. Hit the play button, down to the check mark, and hit the lightning bolt. Okay, that one obviously made a major difference too. So now we're gonna stop this process. go to the back button over here, and we're going to go down to number 4 cylinder injector stop. Hit that play button, check mark it, and hit the lightning bolt, and nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that stop button one more time. We're going to go back to our back button over here. And I am going to go ahead and shut this machine down. Okay, so what we learned from this situation, which made a lot of sense to me when I was running the machine, basically at this point we know that cylinders number 1 and number 4 don't do squat when you shut down the injector. So it's a 4-cylinder machine, like I said, 100 horsepower, but we know that only cylinders 2 and 3 actually make a difference when it comes to when you shut the injector off, it bogs down. So we know, and like I said, it just made a ton of sense to me. I've been running this machine, like I said, maybe 20 hours. It's probably half that. But it's running at best 50% capacity. So at this point, we know I need to start tearing into the engine, and we're going to pull all the injectors out. Starting at the back of the machine, 1 coming closer to us, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to pull the injectors out, and then at that point, we'll send those off to get tested. And we're also going to do a compression check from cylinders 1 through 4. Again, starting at the back, cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to check the compression on those. I'm praying that the compression is okay on those cylinders. I'm hoping that this is only an injector issue. Through some of the research I did online, it is common that the injectors go bad or get plugged up. So that's our hope, is that we got a bad injector too. But anyway, let's just step on to the next step. Where you're going to see me next is we're going to be opening the back door, and we're going to be tearing off all the stuff that's in our way to get to those injectors. So let's get to it. Well, the only way to get anything done is to just simply do it. You don't always have to know how it's all going to unfold, but you got to be willing to do it. So we got the cab up on the machine. I ordered some plugs for my hydraulic and oil lines. They're supposed to be here tomorrow via Amazon, so probably tomorrow next week. But anyway, you know, you can pull this whole radiator system out, but in order to keep a bunch of fluids from, you know, being lost, they make plugs for these. So I did order some of those, thinking that I might need to access stuff from here in the back. But being as I don't have those parts, I went ahead and raised the cab, and I'm gonna take you up inside that cab right now, and I'll just tell you what I already did. My system, or my loader here, somebody had already gutted all the DEF system and the original exhaust. Okay, so one of the other videos I did, you saw me weld up some exhaust to go straight out the top. Without that DEF exhaust, or that original exhaust system, it actually frees up a lot of space in this machine. And so right next to me, I already have the upper portion of the valve cover off. That's held in by 10mm bolts, as you can see all of them in there. And so now I have access, well, to the top of the injectors, the injector harness. And so while I've got video going, I'm gonna carefully, even with room in here, it's still not the most comfortable, if I was being honest with you. But for my own purposes, and for yours, being as we're on the front side, we're looking at cylinders 4, 3, 2, 1. And so what I did notice, as far as this injector wiring, we need to undo all that, is cylinder 4, it's black, green. And then cylinder 3, it looks like black, blue. Cylinder 2 is black, red, and cylinder 1 is black and brown. And so basically, I need to undo all the wiring here, and then we can take out all the bolts down below for the lower section of the valve cover. And with that wiring disconnected, I should be able to pull that all the way out and then we are going to have access to our injector. So things are actually going pretty smooth. It's a warm day, and that's where we're currently at. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that wiring undone, and then we'll give you a look once I get the wiring undone and the valve cover off. It just looks like more 10mm bolts going around there. And obviously I'm also going to have to undo the injector lines there. So I'll probably undo those before the 10mm bolts. And we'll see if we can't finagle that out that way. It is possible that I may have to disconnect the fuel rail or unbolt it, so we got a little wiggle room in here, but we'll find out. So anyway, I'm gonna keep after it. All right, climbing back into the machine. I wanted to show you where we're at. Oh goodness sakes. You know, it's good that I'm a little person, so to speak, because otherwise it would make getting in and out of here not a whole lot of fun. But here's where we're at. We got the lower valve cover off. I had to take the injector lines loose from the injectors, and on the back side, that feed tube for all those injectors, I had to crack all those nuts too, so that I can move those far enough out of the way. So these sleeves basically go into the side of the valve cover through a rubber grommet. And so it was a little, especially with this old gasket, you can see right here. Obviously we'll be replacing the gaskets, and I'll be replacing the rubber grommets in that lower valve cover. But where we're at is I just took out this fuel rail here, 10mm bolts. This whole thing should just come right out of here now. Oh, it's actually, there's one more right where it feeds from, down on the end. I'll have to take that out. And then we've got these 12mm bolts for these hold downs that I need to take off. And at that point, I think these will come out. So I did call Takeuchi vendor or dealership in Springfield, Missouri, which is pretty close to us. And from Takeuchi, these injectors are $1,200 a piece. And they don't test the injectors there. But they recommended me to another place in Springfield that does test the injectors, so I called them, and so in talking to them, they can test the injectors, but they can't run a full gamut of tests. So basically, they're not going to be able to check the fuel spray, and basically they just check them against each other. So I don't think that's the route I'm going to end up going. If I have to send these off, that's probably what I'll do. Send them off so I can get them checked out in detail. Or the other possibility is also a strong possibility. Once I get the injectors out of here, I believe there will be part numbers on those injectors, and in some searching on eBay, I found some injectors that basically you can get a set of 4 for less than you would pay for one brand new one. And so, are you taking a risk at that point, buying an inferior injector? The fact that these have failed, my machine's got 2100 hours. Are these a better injector? Those are the kinds of things you got to think about. I would just say that for anybody who is mechanically inclined, what I've done so far today, with the exception of being cramped, nothing I've done here is hard. Except you will cramp up, and you know, I'll be gimping a little bit just because of the in and the out of the machine. I've been in and out quite a few times a day. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get back to it. We'll finish getting that one last 10mm bolt on the back side so we can get this fuel rail out. We'll get all these nuts off for the hold downs, and I believe at that point we should be able to pull those injectors, and then I'm going to mark them properly or put them in boxes so I know exactly what cylinder they came from. Now, earlier in the video you saw we ran the test on the injector shutdown, and basically cylinders 1 and 4 didn't make any difference in how the machine was running. So we're running on 2 cylinders. I don't think these injectors are threaded in, and so I guess with my current compression checker, it has to thread in, I believe. I'll have to check my adapters, and maybe I have to order something so we can do a compression test on these cylinders. I think it'd just be a good idea to check the compression while we got this thing this far tore down. It just kind of makes sense. But anyway, let's get to it, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, well, we've got our injectors out, all with the exception, number 4 came out a little bit. I had to wiggle it quite a few times. It's kind of stuck in there, but from left to right, we're going 4, 3, 2, 1. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but while they're all dirty, numbers 4 and 1, the tips, while dirty, don't have any real buildup on those. And those are the 2 cylinders that weren't making any difference in how the machine ran. But you look at number 3 and number 2, and there's actually some buildup on this outer stem. So they are, the 2 that are working actually look a little worse than the 2 that aren't. But we got them 4, 3, 2 on. Don't screw that up, don't mix it up. I'm going to get boxes for each one of these, label them. If I had a paint marker, I'd probably just clean these up and paint the number on each one of these. But I think at this point I need to find a spot to put these. Looking back at the machine, I guess here's our fuel rail that connected all those together. They all have this little clip on them. This one broke, so I'll have to see if I can't get a replacement for that, because that's actually, it's not like there's any gasket material on those, but they're obviously there for a reason, and because this one is broke, I'm going to have it. Probably just get a set of them. They probably sell them as a set. But anyway, this is kind of where we're at. It's actually been a really good day working on the machine. I need to cover all that up in there, keep as much debris out of there as I can. I still have to scrape out what's left of the lower valve cover gasket and get that whole surface prepped and cleaned. And like I said, we just want to keep this as clean of a working area as possible, because I guess from all the research I've done, what happens with these injectors a lot of times, if there's anything that gets by your fuel filter or gets into the system, these injectors can get plugged. Pretty temperamental is what it sounds like. But anyway, that might actually wrap it up for this video. Like I said, it's been a great day. Why don't you come in for part 2, and I'll fill you in on what did we find out. Did we send the injectors in to get them tested, or, because there are part numbers on these, I will just zoom in on that, and maybe you can see, but I'm just going to read it for you. On my machine, it's a Denso, and the numbers that are on this particular one are at the top 1JB508-53052, and then Denso 0101, and then below that we have a 12SO2730. So there is no reason why I couldn't just get on eBay, and if there's injectors that match this and they've got good reviews, instead of spending $1,200, you know, if these 2 are actually good and functioning 100%, maybe they are, maybe they're not. Cylinders 2 and 3. Well, that's fine and dandy. But if these 2 are both bad and they're $1,200 a piece from the factory, and if I can buy all 4 injectors, replace all 4 of them at the same time for say $800, well, what makes sense to you? I don't know. Did it come from China? Were these built originally in China anyway? I don't know, and I don't really care at this point. I'm happy to have the injectors out. I hope this has helped you so far. Like I say, stay tuned for episode 2, where we'll be coming back and hopefully be reassembling the machine at that point. I guess one thing I would like to talk about before we finish this up is the harness that goes to these injectors while we are working on this. I'm gonna go ahead and just ohm out basically all these pins to make sure that these wires don't have any breaks in them or anything that might have been screwing us up on cylinders 1 and 4. So we'll do that. Like I say, it should be pretty easy. I mean, I already told you what colors they were, but you know, ohm it out. Piece of cake. All right then. Anyway, I hope that God has blessed you richly today. It's been a beautiful day, and I'm glad to be to the point we are on the machine. We did this in a day. I've never done this before on one of these Takeuchi machines. Again, it's not rocket science. For you bigger fellas or ladies out there, you may not want to do this. Maybe you're so ambidextrous and flexible that this would not be an issue for you, but it's yeah, it's been a joy. Anyway, we'll see you on episode 2 with the Takeuchi TL12 V2, and hopefully we solve our injector problems and we get this machine back up and running and we can put it to work. So God bless you guys, and we'll see you real soon.